programs this week. So, well, actually, this is the fourth as of today. So,
So you're rocking and rolling, learning a little bit from everyone, right?
absolutely, absolutely, and which is really for me as a developer of programs, because one of the questions that I ask all of my HR folks and recruiters is, what is the number one problem that you have with interviewing? You know, whether you're a vet or a non-vet, a high school or whatever it is, and it's boiled down to communication skills, and so I've been trying to develop a training program around that, trying to figure out how we can articulate that skill more versus uh, just thinking I'm going to go breeze through the interview. What are they looking for the
Hmm.
most? So
Yeah, I mean, and it's so true. I mean, we do a lot of all of our programs have soft skill in it, and we
right,
really focus on the communication. How do you
mhm,
transfer those soft skills? Because
right,
if you might be a master at soft skills, but if you don't know how to maneuver them at the right
mhm,
time, at the right moment, you get yourself into some trouble. And
correct.
so I'm very big. And the reason why we have our office admin, we don't show people how to shuffle papers. Everyone knows how to shuffle papers. We're really doing the soft skill
Mhm,
training and pulling those layers back. And us working with the VA, there's a lot of
mhm,
layers to pull back on some of
yeah,
our people out there. So I'm excited to start this conversation as well.
mhm,
Thank you for being prompt on your time as well. I just sent kind of a little reminder to those that might be out there following and wondering. Yesterday, I had a women empowerment event, had a couple
mhm.
men that kind of sprinkled in and one that hung in there as well, but he's been married for 40 plus years and has like four daughters. So he's a boy, he's a girl boy,
Yeah, yeah.
is what I
Um,
call him. But that the individuals there found us by going through the NAW event and said, hey, I yours popped out. I thought yours was interesting, and it was really good. We were crying at the end, which I warned everyone tears might be possible as well. So it's good. I'm a true
mhm.
believer. Everybody who shows up is meant to be there at this time. And I tell everybody between me or you or me and 100, I'm not going to change my message on what it is that we're trying to do today. So thank you so much for being prompt and being
Not a
here.
problem. I truly believe in what our first conversation brought to the table, and that's why I'm here, so we can continue the conversation to get people on task and get them ready for their next adventure. When I first joined the military years and years and years ago, I thought of this. I thought of it as a job. I needed a job. I wanted to get married, and so literally, I thought of it as an easy job to get things done. The longer I stayed, the more things that I involved myself with, the more I understood that this could be a lifelong vocation. So it will be, and it has been. I mean, I'm 30 years plus out of the military and 30 years within government programs. Beyond that, and being part of the military and the VA as a disabled veteran, I have that capability to understand, eyes, and realize what's going on in their world and our world. And now working with corporations all over the region and the nation gives me a better understanding of how we can help our veteran community move forward in their roles and their next adventure.
And that's an undertaking within itself, especially in a busy system as our Veterans Affairs systems, because just internal there, take away the education part. And imagine all of those other resources that we must connect them to, even before we even start talking about what are you going to do when you leave us? What are you going to do in the real world, right? It's
Mhm.
people don't really understand unless you are in it or you've been exposed in one way or another to what that really looks like. And, when we talk about it's kind of withdrawal, it's kind of the same kind of mind frame, I think, of when you're trying to get someone to change from doing something for so long and they're wired to get up at 3 in the morning. They're up, get up, fix your bed, structure, go, 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 eat, do, sleep, whatever you do. And then all of a sudden, you're just saying, all right, thank you so much for your service and welcome back to the real world. I've heard stories, I've seen stories of that not really, resources really not being there. And, individuals become homeless. They start doing things that aren't normal in their character. Sometimes they get aggressive and end up being incarcerated. A lot of addictions happen, from verbal abusing to physical abuse to drugs, you name it, I've seen it. And I was myself exposed, and I did not realize it was such a I hate to use barrier, but it is what it is, right? That barrier where the there's a facility, as you know, I think in Louisiana or North Carolina, somewhere in those natures. I did not realize that this is where you go when you first come out of long services because they have to evaluate you. Are you going to be an internal candidate, or are we going to be able to let you go into the real world without us having to worry that you're going to flip out, lose it, and be on the news and basically represent our United States of America as someone that is broken and that don't care for our own people that are saving the world, as well. And so when I went into a funding meeting, because we're a small business, we're self-funded, we're contract based. So if we don't get contracts, I don't get any money. There's no glorious adventures behind my journey. I'm a servant of the community, and sometimes that just means that I'm a poor philanthropist most of the time. And so, sitting in meetings of different natures, I always try to connect with different individuals, and that's what happened. It was a funding for a major state Mississippi development grant. And it was one of the first that I've even went to, was invited to go to Memphis, hung out, and then the break time, I just, did my little networking and I sat by a lady and she introduced herself and she had that veterans behind her and she started sharing with me about their facility needs and things of that nature. And that's when I had my aha moment and thought, okay, this is something that is even more of what my original mission was, to even start even being a provider, because anyone can't just say, I am a provider of the veterans. No, you have to go through the application process. You have to go through some hoops in order for them to even look at you as a provider. And we became a provider in the middle of 2020 after submitting our application in the beginning of 2019. Of course, COVID hit as well, but it takes some time for that
Yeah.
processing. And I was a little frustrated because I thought, well, come on, we really need to kind of go. And then all of a sudden, I received that magic email that said, hey, congratulations, you guys are now providers for the state of Arkansas. And I've been blessed that I have that partnership. Has that partnership been easy in other states as we move forward? No, we are having to kind of reinvent the wheel each time, fill out an application. So sometimes, having services and wanting to partner up with your guys's industry or field or world, it's a little bit difficult, but definitely worth that investment of your time. You just have to be patient. It's a thing about being patient. I don't know what you feel about that time, and maybe you can share your feelings about that processing time. And that
Well,
everything isn't done overnight.
absolutely. When I first left or joined the military, it was at the tail end of the Vietnam War. Seems like a lifetime ago. And at that point in time, the VA was the worst resource. Working with veterans was almost non-existent. 20 something years later, when I left the military and I came to this region, I really didn't want to work for a living. I just kind of wanted maybe a job, maybe not a job. I talked to multiple employers who we had McDonnell Douglas, now Boeing, in our area. One of the largest employers still
Mhm.
is. And all of the major employers would tell me, "Oh, you're a veteran. You need to go to work for Boeing." And I will go, "But I'm not interested in working for Boeing." They go, "Well, as soon as Boeing starts hiring again, you're going to leave us, so we're not going to make an investment in you." And when I went to the VA to say, "Hey, can you help me? What can I do?" I had been 20 years writing, workforce code for the military, and being an HR personnel manager. The VA was basically like, "Well, no, I think you should, work in some kind of other uh, area, because you took a test and our test says this." So it was no personal decisions. It was just, we're filling a square. And now today, with our veterans community, and it's taken a while, over the last 10 years or so, the VA has woken up. And it's taken that 20-year change model to understand that veterans are people. And they always had that in mind, but maybe not as much as they do today. The veterans programs that I've worked with consistently are looking to help people move forward. My background in workforce has led me to continue my programming with veterans. I started out as a career development person with the state of Missouri, went into the veterans programs, and for several years I worked there, and then moved more into the management world. But it's taken a little bit of time. And I've learned that making those community investments, um, uh, understanding what the vets bring to the table, and then
Mhm.
articulating that to our community, whether it's employers, whether it's community action agencies, whatever it happens to be. Over the years, I can't tell you how many times I've met with different service groups or focal groups or regional
Mhm.
development groups. And the first thing they say, "Well, oh, Frank, you're a veteran. Can you go over to Scott Air Force Base or to Fort Leonard Wood or to Whiteman Air Force Base and our regional military installations in Illinois and Missouri, and tell them about us and have all of those vets come to our area? And we have a lot to offer." And I go, "I understand that, but keep in mind, we as a veteran and as a community,
Mhm.
we just left everything we know. And we have been to places where no man should have ever gone and
Mhm.
should never go back. And now it's our time to go home to spend with friends and family. While our region is fabulous, we have tons and tons of jobs and great people and things like that to offer. It's time for me to go home. Now, we as a community need to come together and understand that it's great to hire a vet, but don't hire us just because we're a veteran. Hire us for the skills and the attributes. I was recently down in Springfield,
Mhm.
Missouri, and was very fortunate, and I was invited in to talk about how to recruit veterans.
Mhm.
Because again, employers are looking for
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
Back when I left the military, nobody was looking for veterans. I can tell you how many times people go, "Oh, you're a veteran, so you drove a tank," and I said, "No, that's the Army."
Yeah. And let me
Uh,
and let me and let me add something. As I
mhm,
did my research, right? I'm always about finding that extra little key point of history. And I'm sure that you might be aware, but apprenticeship program in from starting from what I can see that is major diversities was maybe in the early 1900s,
mhm,
1938. We had the apprentice participate in the whole slavery scene as well. And then it kind of trickled on youth and customized. But there came a year where it was literally used for our military folks in
mhm,
between both of the wars, where they felt like they needed to have something there. So when you got off of your whatever, your tour, they were offering you wages. And it's similar now to those HR. It's funny you say HR because that benefit that helps you when you get deployed to come back to your job, that was first demonstrated back in the 1900s when it was offered to those that they were able to come and go. And that's how the apprenticeship program was really involved in helping our armed services. And so it's been years and years of development. But you're right, a lot of employers, you know that if you have someone that's a normal person coming off the street versus having someone who's coming out of some kind of field of war veterans, they're going to get that push forward. They might not be the right person, and that person might not even want to be there. And you're right, we have to start thinking about human side. What is it that I know you've saved the world? I know your mind is wired differently automatically, and even though you might come out with all these degrees from the service, how are we really going to adapt you to the normal human emotional environment? And then what are we going to do when we realize this is not your passion because you've been wired and this is what has happened in your journey? We have candidates that go into the services from all kind of walks of life, all the way from being ordered from courts to being signed up by a parent because they couldn't do it anymore, to being able to sign up because it's something that's in their genes, right? But
right.
I agree that we are missing that boat on stopping and being excited, of course, that, hey, they're coming to work for us. It makes our company look great. We have funding, you have tax breaks, all of that. But putting all of that aside, focusing on things like you mentioned before, communication, transition, is
Right.
this person really aligned with what your company mission is? Because back when he was doing X, Y, and Z, and I don't know if he's going to be able to switch that quickly in his mind as well. So I just wanted to add that. Go ahead.
No, absolutely. And you're absolutely right. One of the things, though, that if we educate our employers about those things, tax breaks, apprenticeships, all of those things that are currently available, they want to take advantage of that. And again, going back to my Springfield mission, it was a pleasure to listen to 90 something HR professionals and hear their challenges and say, how can a veteran fill this need? And so what I did is I educated them on all of those opportunities, and they were all very, very interested. But their number one problem was we don't ever see any veterans. We don't even know where veterans are. And I said, you know what? This is really simple. If you walk out the door today and walk a mile down the road, I guarantee that you're going to find 100 veterans. Walk into any storefront, walk into any business. But veterans are pretty quiet, especially veterans like myself who are experienced, because we live through the negative times of being a veteran. And it's really hard for us to not celebrate, but to re-educate everybody about our veteran status. I have seen so many Vietnam veteran hats um, in the last several years because people are celebrating our Vietnam vets.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen so many people come out with concerns and injuries, both internal and external, and they are trying to do the best that they can. Now, if I had a veteran that I worked with who was in a wheelchair, and he was concerned about getting a job. I said, I don't think you need to be concerned. And he said, I said, all we have to do is ask for a reasonable accommodation.
Mm-hmm.
And that accommodation basically means making sure I have a clear pathway to my desk. And he goes, Frank, you're absolutely right. I'm a person who brings their chair to work every day. And that was his in to any business. And
Yes.
he landed fairly quickly
And a lot, and
because he
and
embraced.
his what he needed, and he spoke up, and he had someone like yourself who said, wait a minute, all we need to do is tap into the disability benefits. That is a reason why we are also providers and can provide disability services, and underneath that cap in Texas, because it's so important, to be able to tap into that service.
Absolutely. And the thing is while the VA gets a lot of that information out, there's so many supporting agencies like yours that have reinforced that idea. And, every state has veterans representatives within their state organizations. Working with Texas VETS, again, they provide a wonderful source. Missouri Veterans Programs, again, another wonderful source. Illinois, Mississippi, and Tennessee. And I've worked with all of these veterans state organizations over the years, and they are another tremendous resource. The VA is a great starting point. They will get you up and running, but don't leave out those extended services that are out there. If you're using LinkedIn, put in your state. So the state of Missouri, veterans representative, and you will get, hopefully, you will get multiple individuals across your state that can help you move forward. Reach out to organizations like yours, and I know you have the capability of pointing veterans to resources beyond the Veterans Administration. Now, I am not taking anything away from the VA. They have helped thousands upon thousands of veterans. But again, beyond the VA, look at all of the other resources. I've done workshops both in Texas, Illinois vets, Texas vets, Missouri vets, Kansas vets, to help them get on topic working through the VA systems. And, don't, I'm not going to say don't rely. When most job seekers I see, when I talk to a job seeker, I say, where do you look for jobs? And they go, indeed.com. And I'm like, okay, what else do you do? And they're like, well, yeah, that's where all the jobs are. No, it isn't. And so what we need to do is expand their knowledge. The government just signed a huge release of funding for the BEAD program. That's building out infrastructure for Wi-Fi throughout the states. Missouri just signed the bill to authorize building this out. I found two radio men, one from one of our career centers here locally, uh, uh, um, introduced me to an individual who was a radio repair man on an Army helicopter. And so I'm going to refer them to that program. And guess what? It's an apprenticeship. Hopefully, it'll be an apprenticeship program. We're trying to work on that right now. But, there are tons and tons of resources. And you and I are just the tip of the iceberg. But when our partnerships and our future partnerships, hopefully we can build that out a lot to help people grow.
And you're right. I mean, you're hitting all those points on, the reasonings why we're so passionate about providing education for all without any barriers. We came across apprenticeship program just like anyone else, sitting in one of those fancy information sessions, getting fed those fancy foods, everyone suited and booted. Individuals necessarily don't look like me, which that's fine at this point of my life. And, I put my foot forward and all I heard was, free? Are you telling me these are free pathways for anyone who is wanting to set their career? And just recently, with the partnership of Missouri, I got my other aha moment after being an apprenticeship program since 2019 that Missouri is allowing us to onboard 16 and over and no GED and high school diploma. And that literally melted my heart. I literally had to compose my tears because so many people before then had come across my journey that I felt like, okay, I know the resources out there, and I'm going to have to send you back to your adult education services. I love adult education services. I have hands-on ground experience with a lot of adult education entities, organizations around the US. I was fortunate enough to be able to travel with a 500 Fortune company and help them establish an internal education program. And that exposed me to common folks' needs. It
Mhm.
exposed me to where the barriers might be in their education. And then that's where I kind of came with the idea of, I think we need to focus on soft skills. But because at that moment, I was being introduced to a lot of diversity, we decided to put a spin on our apprenticeship program. And the first one came out to be our first bilingual office admin position, which is probably one of the higher hour trainings. There we offer about 362 hours just of book training and then 2,000 hours of on the job training. In other states, we've now have adjusted it, took the bilingual off of there because I felt like I'm putting my own barrier in those candidates that I'm going to come in. But what we kept on originally from our first apprenticeship program is a component of those soft skills building and as well as teaching everyone about language access. Because in the real world, in the business sector, it's a federal guideline. And if we're talking about federal compliancy, which I'm a big, everything I develop comes from a compliancy level. Why? Because I'm a small woman-owned business. Our background, our home base is in Northwest Arkansas, which I'm not sure if I shared with you. We have all the bigger industries in our backyard, Walmart, Clorox, anyone who does any kind of business with Walmart years ago were sent an email giving them a certain amount of time, basically saying, if you want to do business with me, you got to have an office here. If not, thank you so much for your services. And who is not going to want to be partners with Walmart, right? So
Right.
I had no choice but to create something solid coming off of, what I was doing. And soft skills and communication is key, especially in an environment where you're dealing with individuals that, like you said, have seen things that they shouldn't have seen. In particular, now, I mean, not, about things that happen in the war when they come. It's kind of like the new AI, the AI and the cybersecurity talk. I giggle, even though I'm only 50 years old. My joke to everyone is, hey, AI has been around for a long time, you guys. How do you think our world is even functioning? Why do you think people say we have aliens in Las Vegas in the middle of the desert? Why do you think people know what everyone is talking about? AI and cybersecurity have been around, my people, for a long time. We now, as a human community, finally have access to it. And we're all like, oh my God, what's going to happen? What are we going to do? But it's interesting how at the end of the day, the veterans world has been around forever. It's part of everyone's history, no matter what country you are. And we're very fortunate to be in the United States where we have such a sophisticated system. But like you said, every system is not meant for everyone. Every system, small business, nonprofit, whoever you are, has to have antennas to be able to walk someone, not just push someone there. I believe in walking with them. Walk by my journey side by side. Make sure that if I'm sending you to point A or B, that after you get with B, that we've built enough relationship that you can send me a quick email and say, hey, Aliana, so and so has gotten there. Or even from that candidate, hey, you guys, thank you so much. I didn't get where I needed to go, but I'm headed the right direction. So those are the little things that us as a business look when we are connecting with partners like yourself, with individuals that we know that are out there that might say they're doing what they're doing. And we're not going to get into that whole discussion. I think we can all read between the lines, but really finding those in people that are helping empower one another. Because once you empower someone, that person flies away and you can't keep them hold back because you want them in your business or you think they're going to be your superhero, right? So we're
Yeah.
really the ones that start that foundation from ground one. And if we don't continue to add more individuals in our circles like ourselves, those statistics of things that we hear that happen in the in the veterans world, which sometimes they have to be very severe for us to hear. And we only can imagine how many things happen in your world because it is an old world within it's everyone protects everyone. The reason really was for me to push forward and continue to work and be openly. I've never served. My family's never served. I think I might had a grandfather or so somewhere in my genes that served internationally some way. I do have relatives that serve in military in Central America as well. So, but in the United States, no. But I've always been, my mother for instance, retired, lives in El Salvador. On the 4th of July, she's putting the American flag out on her porch and celebrating. So she's a big Trumper, right? Our politicals are all over the place. So I
Mhm.
was really raised in a different environment and cultural to really be honored of my country. Has my country internally, culturally let some of our own kind fall between the cracks? Yes, but it happens no matter what country, what culture you're in. Example, the war that is happening now ended up to be, oh, this is happening and it's starting to get a little conflict. And look where it's at now. It is all over the place. We have people now that are having to leave their families to get deployed where everything was starting to settle down. Our president really went above and beyond and said, we're pulling our fighters out. They need a break. We need to do some kind of rotation. And so, not really having that security, it's hard to have an adult person who you're having to come and not just career wise, but those basic skills of knowing your empowerment, knowing that it's okay to cry, it's okay to show your emotions are not there. And if you really don't address it, we will find ourselves in the same conversation years and years down the road, which is a conversation that I know many individuals have had, like me and you, as well. So I'm glad that we're able to kind of talk openly about those resources that are out there, and that you've named. Frank, what would you do? Give me a example. Let's just use me. Say I'm getting ready to get out and you know that I'm coming down the pipeline. What does that look like? What is a meeting? Where would somebody like you come in the picture or supposed to be in the picture?
Well, most installations will have a transition assistance program for people who are separating and or retiring from the military. Now, not all individuals have 100% access to that, but a majority of the people do. So that's a good starting point. Back when I worked with the Transition Assistance Program or TAP program back in the olden days, it was written by government people who, in my opinion, really had never looked for a job before. So we brought an interesting take. We brought the take from the employer's side of the house versus a de- Department of Defense side of the house. Today, it's completely revamped. Our transition and assistance program at Scott and at Fort Wood is vastly different than when I worked in the program, 8, 10 years ago. And so if you and I were going to sit down, it's really simple. The first thing that I want to know is, what do you want to be when you grow up? And so you're retiring or you're exiting the military. I need to know what skills you want to utilize and what skills you're not interested in utilizing. I worked with a submariner a year or so ago, and he was still deployed. And we had some very interesting conversations at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning when he could actually talk to me. And or communicate with me. And so I really need to know what it doesn't have to be a career. It can be, you know what, I want to take 6 months off. I want to spend time with the family. And then I need to start looking for my next, again, I call a career an adventure because that's exactly what it is.
Exactly,
Um,
exactly.
and then I want to have a frank conversation with them. What we do, first of all, what we do is we transfer skills. This is what I call it from the corporate, and this is what you call it in the military. And I just had a great conversation with a Navy vet, and um, we both kind of did the same thing. Of course, I was in the Air Force; he was in the Navy, and we were comparing. Oh, well, the Navy calls it this, and the Air Force calls it that. But it's exactly the same thing. And so what we do is we or I help them translate their skills. You're right. AI has been around since 1999 and probably even further back than that. So I took an AI program for about 3 years ago, and I rewrote it for me to help vets translate their skills. Now, please don't ask for access to this. This stupid thing cost me 6 grand, and I am not, unless you want to pay for it, a lot of money, it's not going out in the wild. So, but what I do is I utilize that, and I take an MOS. So let's say 74 Delta, which is on the Army side of CBRN communication, uh, or making sure that chemical warfare type stuff. And then what I do is I translate that from military, Army speak to civilian speak. And then, or whatever MOS that I can find. And what I do is I actually look the MOS up, and then I import and pull that data into my system, and then I compare it to what a civilian counterpart was.
Hmm.
Now, keep in mind, about 80% of the military skills will translate fairly easily, but there's also always going to be a subjective part of your skills that we're going to have to come up with another word for that skill. And then what we do is I asked them, I said, I need you to go pull 2 jobs, something you're interested in. I don't care if you apply for the job or not, but let's talk about those 2 jobs. And then what we do is we develop a resume around those 2 jobs. I don't want you to pull a resume out of the air because it's not contextualized. We need to determine what that job is and how your skills apply. So with 2 jobs, what I can now do is compare and help you develop a resume based on what you want to be when you grow up. Now, keep in mind, most people are looking for one job, but chances are they are 80% qualified for multiple jobs. So again, what I'll do is I'll take your resume after we get a good working model of it. Oh, and by the way, I don't write resumes. That's your job. And people go, well, you know what? How much does it cost? Well, it's really simple. I charge $500 a resume. Now people go, what, $500? And I said, that's why it's so high, because I don't want to write it. The biggest thing about a resume is if you and I are having a conversation, I'm the employer, and of course you're the job seeker, and I go, pull out your resume and walk me through it. If you have somebody else that writes that resume, you're going to have no clue. And you can't go, well, let me call a lifeline here. Hey, Frank, why did we put this on my resume? You know?
Oh, I
So I
love
want
it. I love it.
you, yeah,
I
I
have
want
not
you to be 100%.
I've not heard it that way. We
Yeah,
do,
absolutely.
we do help with resumes sometimes here and there, but I'm going to use that one. I think that is a way to challenge individuals to really own up to their resumes, because we always can use Grammarly. You can always use things to spur it up, but having that foundation, authentic, being
Yeah.
authentic is huge. And you're right. It would be horrible to get a resume and that employer asks you, read it through, and you hit a spot and have
Oh
no
no,
clue what you're
did
supposed
I
to say.
freeze or did you freeze? Mhm.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I'm not sure if I froze or you froze.
I think I might have froze. I think we're good to go now.
Okay, great. Okay, so anyway, what I'm trying to do is instill ownership of a resume. And I get it. There's so many tools out there. I've had people go, can Chat GTP write my resume? No. It can give you a shell, but it's not going to write your resume.
Mm-mm.
So what I do with a veteran is I want to make sure that whatever they're showcasing to an employer, is that employer will understand it.
Yeah.
And the second part of that, I don't write resumes to look pretty. I write resumes to get through the bot. So if you're applying for any Fortune 500 company or any mid-sized to and even some small companies, there's a chance that you're going to have to apply online. And your resume must conform to the data requirements of that online process. I can't tell you how many times that resume, you submit it, and then you immediately push send, and 5 minutes later you're getting a rejection letter.
Hmm.
And one of two things: one, the job could already be filled, which is a good possibility, but number two is your resume sucked and it just didn't parse
And
correctly.
and it
So
and
the
it didn't and
system,
it didn't pick up those key words. You know,
absolutely.
the last time that I spoke to a high corporate vendor supplier who was the one that said you can supply, put your application in, literally sat with me and said, you know what, Ileana, I know the question is describe your services. I'm going to tell you how my team works. My team, when I need something, they put that keyword, and whoever comes up is whoever we look at. So don't waste the whole time on those descriptions. Use those keywords that are going to make you pop. And that was
Absolutely.
huge. That was really huge because up until then, which was this year, every time there was a question, being government descriptions, you think you have to put every last little detail. I don't do that anymore. I literally
Yeah.
focus on those keywords because it's a game changer, especially with all those new apps that a lot of high-end HR companies are
Yeah.
using. Walmart has this huge app that they use, even though that there's
Mhm.
human people behind that app as well. But you're right.
Yeah.
Those keywords will make a difference.
Absolutely. So, coming from the recruiting world, um, we would post a job and I would see, 250 to 500 resumes per job, and sometimes even more depending upon the job. And even today, we're seeing that as well. Recruiters are spending a very small amount of time to determine who they want to move forward. You are never 100% eliminated in the online application process. Elimination is not the right word. The biggest problem is your resume did not rank high enough. So we need to make sure your resume is ranking at 80% or higher, which is sometimes a little bit difficult, but keywords is the number one solution. But we need to make sure that your resume gets in front of somebody so they can spend the quality 8 to 10 seconds to review it. And then what we do is we teach vets exactly what you said, how to determine what keywords are useful and what keywords are not, but most importantly, where the keywords should go in your resume. Do they go in experience? Do they go in the keyword section? Do they go in your education? More importantly, should they be in your cover letter? Absolutely. And we hopefully have designed a process and a product that helps vets move forward in their job search strategy. And in today's world, that's key to their success. As well as you know, and I know, and most other people know, it's the gamification of the job search strategy. You have to play the game. So either you play to win or you play because you're just playing.
Yeah,
And the
yeah,
number one concern is that along with having a robust resume, if you're a professional, white collar or blue collar, it doesn't really matter. You need to have a viable LinkedIn
you
profile
do.
as well, because most major corporations and a lot of mid-sized and smaller corporations are using LinkedIn as a recruiting tool. They may not be using LinkedIn's background, in other words, or back end, like LinkedIn Recruit or Recruit LinkedIn, whichever the new term is. But they're utilizing it to find, source, and recruit individuals for their opportunities.
And they're
But
and they're also looking at LinkedIn to see who is your social circle. Who is this
absolutely
person? I mean, media is huge. I remember years ago, everybody was about Facebook. Don't put
yeah,
anything on Facebook. If you got certain things, you better close it down because employers are starting to look at that as well. But
right,
LinkedIn is huge. And I also think coming from a situation where you're used to doing certain things in your own world, you don't realize all the things, all the little things that you've done that you can add on as part of your experience versus having, I served from 2020 to 2023, and this is all I did. I'm a type of person that if I see that, I'm going to say, well, this person wasn't really imagined, didn't really put in their effort for me to kind of see what their areas of expertise is. And so that means for an employer, you're hoping that you're going to bring them in and they're going to be articulate enough to communicate what it is that they do. And that is where that communication factor comes in on being able to transfer those soft skills and respond quickly. Because as a service person, you guys are already wired to respond, to see things quickly, to make sure your man doesn't fall in front of you. If they fall, you pick up and you go, go, go. No is not an option. But in business, it's a little bit different because now people are looking at your body language. You can't be so aggressive. You can't look like you're lying. And sometimes when it comes to these basic interviews, a lot of people don't even get through. If we get past that resume, then comes the whole interviewing part
correct.
as well. So I agree. Resume is huge. LinkedIn is definitely big, and asking those questions in the very beginning. What do you want to do when you grow up? I go around telling everyone I dream and I dream big. If you guys can't dream, I will dream with you until you're able to own your own dream, and then we'll let you fly, open up your wings. But we all also forget to remember that a lot of people forget how to dream because of
Yes.
their environment, because of their situation, because there may be young kids. And guess what? My mama doesn't have any food in their cabinet. So I'm now going to have to step up and I'm going to have to go get a job. I'm going to go have to hustle in the street corner because my little sister doesn't have any diapers. I'm not going to go to school anymore. Or better yet, I'm in the field and this is what I'm wired for. This is what I've known since I was 18 years old. And now I'm past retirement and I know that it's time for me to stop. And now what am I going to do? Am I going to really, after being in the hustle? And I don't know if you know of anyone who says that they're going to retire and literally retire and their brain just stops. It takes a minute for your brain. I mean, my husband worked for a major 500 Fortune company for over 20 years. He retired, and I thought this is going to be the best life for us. He's just going to no, 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 no. And now he's
Yeah.
disabled as well, so he still doesn't know the word no. So some people, when they are not allowed to dream, and you're at a certain age, that adds a whole nother obstacle. And a lot of our vets that are
Yeah.
coming are not 18 or 19 years old. They're the older generation that now has said, I am stepping away and I have to move on. And so how do we handle, those barriers when we're now talking about, we have, for instance, our young generation, that if you ask them about TikTok, Chat GPT, LinkedIn, Facebook, they got it. They know what you're doing.
Yeah.
But
I agree.
if you ask the older generation, oh no. That's kind of what happened. COVID was an example of the age barriers in our workforce. How many teachers in the industry decided to say, I can't do this. I
Correct.
cannot jump on any kind of technology and think that you're going to want me to teach and learn and grade and come up with videos. No, I think I've done enough. But those same individuals are individuals that AHA runs across and talks to and tries to empower. Just in Mississippi on Wednesday, I met a gentleman, older age, his wife is retired, this and that. It's always a full circle. And now we're starting to asking, no matter what age you are, what is your dream? What do you want
Yeah.
to do? We've wasted all this time and you've had all these journeys, but now it's time to really do things that you want to do. Because
And
as you know, just like you had your passion of getting up, putting on your boots, getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, going and getting all your badges and all of your accomplishments, if you do something in life that you really want to do, then it no longer becomes a job. It becomes your
absolutely.
mission and your passion to get up. I'm not saying you're going to be happy every day. I'm not saying that you're going to say, I am the superstar, or that you're not going to have barriers, because that's not the real world. But at least you know that you're doing something that's going to bring you happiness and is going to bring you joy, because what that does is empowers everyone else around you. So if we have someone, I feel, that comes from a world that most humans and even employers don't really even understand, and we can sit back and empower them. Most of our vets have families, have husbands,
Mhm.
have wives, have children, mothers and fathers that have sat in the sidelines, waited for them to come out and be who they really wanted them to be. And if we can find that
Right.
middle boundary where we can empower our own, therefore they will empower their household, then it will empower the whole community that we're trying to strive and change our workforce pipeline. So really, that was my message
Totally.
of
We
of of making sure that we just continue this conversation. Even if it's not NAW week, I tell everyone NAW week is great. NAW week this year has allowed me to empower, shake hands of mayors, thumbs up with youth, you name it. I've gotten my energy jug bucket full at 150%. I'm ready to go. But in the reality, individuals like me and you and others out there that I know that are out there, we promote 365 days a year on what we need to do to change our workforce. If there was more days in the year or more hours of the time, we would own them as well. So we just have to remember, and my hopes are that We celebrate veterans on Veterans Day. We have honored them. We give them their kudos and everything else. But we have to remember that, we have individuals out there that want to come into our world and just need that little extra help, but we can't belittle them. We can't make them feel, we can't send them to our local workforce department where no one has a plan for them, where they're having to jump on a computer. No one told me I had to get on a computer. I haven't been on one of these dang computers for how long? I've been in the field repairing engines while our army was trying to fight so and so off, right? So we have to remember that
Mhm.
it's a real workforce out there, different, but we have to start thinking outside of the box so we don't lose those individuals and you hear them or you're giving them some food that they're sitting in the corner and they want to have a huge conversation. Because if I'm going to give you a sandwich, then that means I want to hear your story and you're going to open up because you're going to hear that kindness. And some of those stories that you hear makes you think back on, wow, if somebody just would have said this, or if somebody would have just offered this. And I'm not saying that we're all here to say there's homeless, everyone that's homeless comes from the veterans world. That's not the real world that's happening out there. We have all kind of situations that leads us to homelessness. But when we come into a situation where we find someone that has put their life in their in front of everybody else's, and most of us fight in the very front of what anything that's happened as well. We need to at least step back and reflect before we say, nope, you're not good enough. Nope, that's not the resource that I was looking. Because training in the United States is available through so many organizations on top of apprenticeship programs. And that is really what we're here today, is to really embrace the opportunities of apprenticeship programs. Know that not all apprenticeship programs are equal, just like all of our leaders aren't equal out there in the world. And not everyone is meant to go to 4-year, 5-year colleges or end up having to spend their benefits and then still finding themselves in financial debt at the end of the day. And just remembering that we have to be open and kind-hearted to humans no matter what they look like, no matter what they've done in their world, and never tell someone that they're too experienced to move forward, because that's a whole nother problem that we have. You either don't have enough skills or you have too much skills. And in apprenticeship program, it doesn't matter what skill you have, as long as you are actively participating and that employer brings you on because they see something in you, that's all you need. So that is the reasons why I'm big on proactive on apprenticeship programs, why I submitted my application as an ambassador on the first cohort, why I decided to become all in one. So if we ever had situations where I found that candidate that no one else thought was going to be somebody or someone that I needed to spend that extra sprinkle time, I didn't have to wait for an employer. I didn't have to wait for anyone to say, yes, you can be part of your journey. We support you because we believe in you. And I think that's the common mission that I have between myself being a Hispanic woman, first generation born from immigrants, is that I truly believe when our service says there's no man that's left behind. I really believe in that statement that we hear. And so, for that reason, I believe that's what's brought us together today. Two different people, two different walks of life as well. Mr. Frank, anything else that you want to add to this conversation that you feel is important for anyone else to hear this recording that will go out?
Well, to tell you the truth, I think you've done a fantastic job today, and I really appreciate the time that we've spent together. The last thing that I want to tell everybody, our veterans community, or anybody looking at an apprenticeship program, the answer is no until you ask. I've told to my kids ever since we're little that, again, the answer is no unless you ask. And then, like you said, so many apprenticeship programs are open no matter what, whether you're low income, high income, you already have a degree, you don't have a degree. You're just interested in learning a skill for a lifetime. And the apprenticeship, excuse me, the Gateway Apprenticeship that I'm currently working with, excuse me, so many people are surprised. Oh, I don't have to meet a median income. I don't have to come from this background. I can be just a regular person off the street and I'm just looking for a new opportunity. Absolutely. Apprenticeship programs are the way to go. And I truly believe in them. When they first started out many years ago, I was like, how's this going to work? But that's because they had so many things tied to them. You could not be more than blah old, and you had to be this money, and you had to do that, and you had
Yeah.
to live on this side of the street and not the other side of the street. And now apprenticeship programs are, the best kept secret in town.
They really are. And let's just really add on. And if you master your skill, you get a nice certification from the Department of Labor on Washington, D.C. style that you get that can really rock and roll and change your whole life as well. And I'm going to piggyback and I will end by saying no is not an option. I said that over and over this week. No is not an option for AHA, and no is not an option for anyone on our journey. So, Frank, I want to salute you for all of your services that you've done on the behalf of yourself in the United States of America and our Veterans Affairs. I appreciate everything that you have shared with us. I'm looking so much forward to building this relationship with you as well. And with your permission, I will share this recording on our YouTube channel and on all our other platforms because it's good conversation to have. And some people just don't realize that simple conversation can make you have your aha moment. So once again, Mr. Frank, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Let's not make this the last time that we connect as well. So I appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Have a great weekend and enjoy the rest of your Friday.
Thank you. Have a great one. Bye
All right.
bye.
All right. Bye bye.